What is the NOM 035 STPS 2018 about? It is an official Mexican standard issued by the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, STPS, which determines the minimum conditions necessary to ensure the safety, health, and effective work environment for the population. The main objective of this standard is to establish all the elements to identify, analyze, and prevent psychosocial risk factors that employees may face in a company, as well as to promote a favorable organizational environment, preventing work accidents and work-related illnesses. Which companies does NOM 035 apply to? This standard applies throughout the national territory and is applicable to all workplaces operating in the country. How can you comply with NOM 035? If you are the employer of a company and want to ensure compliance with each of the regulations established by the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare to avoid possible penalties for your company, it will be necessary to know the psychosocial risks that you must avoid in your work environment. To do this, you should start by applying the questionnaire for the identification of workers subjected to severe traumatic events and the corresponding reference guide based on the number of employees. Creating and disseminating the psychosocial risk policy. Promoting the generation of a favorable organizational environment. Subsequently, it will involve analyzing and implementing best practices to prevent all types of psychosocial risks within the company. Non-compliance with this standard can result in penalties ranging from $4,000 to over $420,000 Mexican pesos, according to Article 994, Fraction V of the Federal Labor Law. This standard is based on the ILO, International Labor Organization, classifies as psychosocial risk any characteristic of the working condition that affects people's health through psychological and physiological mechanisms. What are psychosocial risk factors? They are those that can provoke anxiety disorders, disrupt sleep cycles, affect adaptation to changes due to the nature of job functions, work shifts, exposure to severe traumatic events, and acts of workplace violence. The ILO and the World Health Organization, WHO, have warned about the negative impact of work overload and long working hours. According to data provided by both entities, 750,000 people die each year from heart diseases and cardiovascular accidents linked to these factors. After the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact of psychosocial risk factors on the mental health of workers in the country increased, especially concerning workloads and time spent on work-related activities. How and in what ways do psychosocial risk factors affect? Stress, obesity, and overweight. Increase in payroll costs due to employee absences and productivity losses. Some companies experience monetary losses each year due to emotional disorders suffered by their employees. Currently, a worker suffering from depression on average misses 25 days a year, 20 days due to panic attacks, 14 days due to post-traumatic stress, and 20 days due to anxiety. The purpose of STPS Norm 035 is to improve work environments through different areas related to security and hygiene, which pertain to the working conditions, ensuring that employees have clean and optimal spaces to carry out their activities along with the necessary protection and safety equipment. Work schedules. Ensuring that established work hours and shifts do not interfere with the balance between work and family activities, reducing overtime or ensuring it does not exceed what is stipulated in Mexican laws. Performance. Relating to how the evaluation, recognition of talent, and work of employees are conducted. Training and development. Related to the professional growth and development of workers within the company. Leadership. Refers to the support, guidance, and recognition that workers receive from their leaders. Physical health. Relates to how prone workers are to workplace accidents, physical injuries from increased physical effort, or exposure to hazardous activities. Sense of belonging. Represents the pride shown by workers in being part of the company and reducing employee turnover. Work. It concerns the degree of responsibility, workload in terms of activities performed, the relationship between resources and the job. Workplace violence. Psychological harassment. Destructive relationships, negative work environment. Let's remember that when there is a low psychosocial risk, employees tend to be positive and proactive. Participate actively in all activities. Achieve common goals. The work environment is marked by good camaraderie and sometimes even friendships. But if there is a high psychosocial risk, employees tend to feel exhausted, be negative and lacking in innovation, only show up for work, live just to fulfill a schedule, not goals. And sometimes, they can be destructive in work relationships. Lastly, what responsibilities do we have as a company? To comply to avoid sanctions. To disseminate the internal policy on Norm 035 throughout the work environment so that all employees are aware of it. To involve all responsible areas to generate positive change within the organization. To conduct measurements, controls, and gather evidence to drive change. Remember that what is not measured cannot be improved. Lastly, to refine processes. What responsibilities do we have as workers? To collaborate and participate in creating a favorable organizational environment and prevent acts of violence. To inform about practices that are contrary to improving the work environment. To report incidents of workplace violence using the mechanisms established by the company and/or through the Health and Safety Committee. To refrain from engaging in practices that go against a favorable organizational environment. What benefits will we have from effectively implementing NOM 035? Improvements in the organizational environment and atmosphere. Active participation of employees with a positive focus towards the organization. Achievement of goals and objectives. Sense of belonging.